Now, US President Joe Biden has sat down for his first TV interview since exiting the 2024 race. The interview was recorded at the White House. It was a CBS production on Sunday morning and covers Biden's decision to end his bid for a second term, his outlook on the country, and a range of other topics, including his reflections on American democracy. Joining us to talk through this and other news from the campaign, Maddie Hale, Talk International presenter, is with us. Is that a made-up title, isn't it?
No, you always do that. Every week you always try and... You're like all those people that said that Jill Biden wasn't a doctor. Like, this is my actual title. Stop trying to take it away from me.
She's not a doctor. She's not a medical doctor.
She doesn't claim to be. You can be a doctor.
But everybody thinks... When people like to use the title...
Yeah, okay, well, my title is international presenter, and that was just what I was given, so we'll have to move on from that.
Yeah. Do you know David Ball, the presenter? You know, I thought he was a medical doctor. No.
What is he?
Xylophones.
You're kidding.
Seriously.
My former principal had a doctorate in high ropes. Do you know what that is?
In high ropes?
Yeah, you know when you go on the school camp and you walk on those high ropes?
What, you kind of hold the things and you walk? You can't be a doctor in that. A doctor of rope? I'm sorry, that's just some weird dungeon place you go to, isn't it? Come and see the doctor of rope. $50.
How did we get on this?
I don't know. We're meant to be talking serious about international politics.
Let's get into it.
So what's been happening over there?
Okay, so Joe Biden, he hasn't really been seen, he was obviously sick for a while. Now he's out, he hasn't really been doing much. No interviews, nothing, no press conferences, but obviously this is just the way he rolls regardless of stepping down. But he's finally sat for an interview. It will air on Sunday, but we have a clip of the first 30 seconds that has been released by CBS, so we'll let the audience listen to this.
Here it is.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power in January 2025?
If Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all. I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He means what he says. We don't take him seriously. He means it. All the stuff about if we lose, there'll be a bloodbath. Have to be a stolen election. Look what they're trying to do now in the local election districts where people count the votes. They're putting people in place in states that they're going to count the votes, right?
Sorry, if he loses or if he wins? Which one?
Well, he stuffed it up. He meant if he loses. So he accidentally said...
Surely if he wins.
He meant what happens if, basically, would he dispute the election if Trump loses? But Biden obviously accidentally said, because this is the Biden interview, he said,
yes,
if he wins, I mean if he loses. So it was just another reflection on... I mean, I just thought, just face value, looking at Biden, he just looks so frail and old. Like...
Is that Joe Biden?
Oh, do you think that he's got a stand-in?
There was a guy show. There was some, like, where he suddenly became like 7'6" tall.
Oh,
Did you see some of
yeah.
that?
I call those people conspiracy theorists. I don't know what you call them. Probably colleagues or friends.
You might. I mean, normally I'd save this stuff for Kevin O'Sullivan's show, but. He did look taller in a clip walking across the White House lawn.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
He walks like the Pink Panther as well. It took me a while to realise that. So he's got a kind of strange gait.
Well, he's 81. That could be it.
He's 81.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought, look, we're moving on to Kamala Harris. We know that. We're moving on. She's the nominee. She's the presumptive nominee, but she'll be the nominee next week.
Yeah.
But I still think, if I was an American, I still wouldn't be able to get over the fact that that man in that 30-second clip that we just played, that the White House tried to convince everyone that that man was the right person for 4 more years in the highest job in the world.
It is unbelievable, right?
I just think, like, wow, like she has done the most remarkable kind of bounce back in her campaign. We know that she's obviously raised millions of dollars and the polls are going higher for her and she's doing a great job. It's been the comeback story of the ages. But I just think, if I was American, I wouldn't be able to get over the gaslighting.
It's extraordinary.
It is insane.
It was ever considered that, and now, of course, because you've got this new vice president, the new running mate, this
Tim Walz,
Tim Walz, who, talked about thank you for bringing the campaign alive or something.
Yeah, kind of an awkward
day. They had this kind of really weird love-in, and they had that phone call, didn't they? And
Quite cringe.
It was very cringe, because they obviously knew about it. It was a setup. It was just rubbish.
Apparently, it came together very quickly. She had the pick of three vice presidential candidates, and she chose Minnesota Governor Tim Walz basically off vibes, basically off the fact that he stands for the same policies and rhetoric that she does, but they got along really well, according to...
They're a pair of lunatics.
Yeah.
Because, Trump had already called her a lunatic.
But so what everyone is talking about Tim Walz, regardless of... They're talking about the stuff that he did for Minnesota, whether they be good or bad, but the main thing people are talking about is what he says out loud. So I want to show this clip of Tim Walz referring to Republicans as weird.
Let's have a listen.
I'm not a name caller, but what I am as a teacher, I observe things. So I want to tell you what I observed, and you've observed about these guys when you see them, that it's a very clear thing. Yes, they are creepy and weird as hell. You see it. You see it. This is not normal. This is not normal behavior. Nobody's asking for this crazy stuff.
There it is. They're weird people. I'm
not a name caller, but they're creepy and weird.
I'm not a name caller, but I'm just going to label 50% of the entire country.
He just took...
They're weird.
I think he was referring mostly to Trump and JD, and he's just taking a leaf out of Trump's book. It's this weird VP fight currently over basically who's the manliest man between JD and Tim Walz, because they've both served their time in the National Guard and the military or whatever, and both of them are talking about like who actually went to combat, like who actually fought, who actually used weapons, and it's like, you both served the time.
Who's got the biggest gun?
Yeah,
that's
like,
what they're arguing,
great, you've both done that, you've both served. That's remarkable in its own.
JD Vance is wearing a lot of eyeliner, right?
Do you think?
Yeah, because there were some photos of him and he didn't have eyes like that. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, I thought it was the bloke from Made in Chelsea when I saw him.
Which one?
And I thought,
Jamie?
And then I thought, no, it's a bloke who wants to be the vice president. He's kind of all eyelash.
That goes against everything he stands for.
Well, that's what I thought. Someone has given him somebody has said, oh, your eyes will look better and livelier.
Well, obviously it's Trump's makeup team.
A guy liner on, that's going to work.
God.
Do you know what's the anniversary of in American politics today?
What's the date? The 8th of the 8th.
It's kind of not something that's celebrated or talked about on an annual basis. It's just a little factoid.
What is it?
It's 50 years since President Nixon resigned, because, of course, he lied, and that's where Watergate came from, and that's where sticking the word gate on the end of everything came from.
Russiagate.
Partygate, Russiagate, all from Watergate.
Oh, wow.
And I'd forgotten about it because, of course, it was David Frost, a British...
Well, you were right in the thick of it at that point in your life. You were probably covering it.
Do you know what? Get out. That's right.
You would have been about 30 years older.
I was actually 42 when that happened, and I remember saying to Nixon at the time, it ain't going to last.
You were
Richard.
You were an advisor to him.
I was an advisor to him. I was his dad, actually, yes. Of course, the Frost-Nixon film with Michael Sheen, which was incredible. I'd forgotten until I heard a clip of it this morning that what actually did it for him, because it's not the original lie, it's the covering up of the lie. That's usually what gets
everything.
People. And that's where it all went wrong. But when David Frost said to him something like, if you commit a criminal act, surely that's wrong? And he said, it's not wrong if you're the president.
Oh, God, so
I'm slightly paraphrasing it there.
Started
But
Trump.
essentially, that was it. That was him done. That was him done. And apparently he was quite, he had moments of brilliance, but he was a very, very dark operator. But if you haven't seen Frost-Nixon, the movie, you have to see it.
Thank you for promoting it.
Yeah, it's not that old, actually. I mean, what, 15 years ago, I guess?
I was quite young at that point. I think I must have been 3.
Get in the bin. So, who's going to do it then? Who's going to be... You've got Trump, you've got...
Who's going to win?
Kamala Harris. Who's going to win this thing?
I genuinely, you know what? You and I have spoken about this. If we had spoken about this after the debate, we obviously know Trump would have won. Done. That's a done deal.
Correct.
I have been really surprised and frankly in awe of the Kamala Harris's team, because I just think that I actually think she has a real shot at this. I still think Americans just want change. And I think she'll be able to...
That's what... See, what's going to happen there is what happened here. It's not necessarily...
And it happened in Australia as well.
Yeah, and they've never had... I mean, Australia's had a female leader, more than one, I think.
No, just one.
Just one.
Yeah. Have you only had... How many have you had?
3.
Oh, OK, so you guys are quite
we're well ahead here.
Yeah.
Thatcher, Theresa May, Liz Truss, fair enough, she was only there for about 6 minutes.
Whatever, that's a foot in the door for the rest of us.
There you go. I mean, you know, talk about the sisterhood and the party.
We all won that day.
It's the Tories. But they've never had one, of course, and I think that's a big factor.
And
they quite like the idea of having a female.
Yeah, and I always thought maybe Americans aren't ready for a female, maybe they're not ready for someone who identifies as black or whatever she is. I think she's dad's Jamaican and her mum's Indian. But I thought that it might be too much change. But now I'm starting to think that after such a tumultuous 8 years, they might just be ready for someone that is just ready to hit the ground going.
That's possibly true. And I said this at the time as well. What happens is, I mean, Kamala Harris has been essentially locked in a cupboard for the last 4 years. No one's seen her do anything.
Yeah.
And the role of vice president is a bit of a weird role. I mean,
is.
You do a lot of press in the flesh. You know, you meet some school kids. You turn up when the president can't. But you don't make any decisions, really. But it's in a way, I think that's the best job, frankly. You've got none of the responsibility.
I would love it.
You're flown around with the same security as the president. You know, it's not, you know, you eat in the best places, you have great holidays. What's not to like? But I sense there has been a shift of how you project things onto people. So she was there, didn't do very much. Most vice presidents, to be fair, don't do very much. And then once she's given the title of nominee, and she's going to stand for president, people begin to look at her in a different way. It's just a human thing that you do. You see her differently. And then people start to ask questions, go, well, maybe a female would be good, and, you know, the country's in a mess, and I might quite like Trump, but I fancy some change, and this is proper change, and Trump no longer looks like the younger of the two, because he's got someone who's definitely younger, because him and Biden, I mean, he did look fitter than Biden, but they were in a similar age category, so she's got that going for her. And then, of course, if she does win, we're going to go through all the, you know, rigged election malarkey, aren't we?
That's the one thing, and that's what Biden obviously touched on in that CBS clip. That's the one, I'm really not ready for that. I'm really not ready to repeat history to that extent, because, you know, the stolen election allegations and the January 6th was just too much.
I find it almost impossible that anyone has got over January the 6th. The idea that you could then... And I know Trump supporters, and we have people over here in this country who have no skin in the game, but talk about Trump as if he's their dad.
Yeah.
That loyal and protective over it. It's a bizarre thing. Really bizarre. You know, isn't somebody you're going to vote for. It's not somebody you're going to be affected by in the conventional sense. And as soon as you raise it, they'll say, no, Trump, he actually called for quiet and calm.
No.
You know...
well, you have Mike Pence coming out as the VP saying absolutely not. Did that happen?
It didn't happen. Hours later, there was something that happened about being people. You know what to do, or something of that nature. And they were trying to, they wanted to kill Mike Pence, for God's sake. You know, if ever there was a point where you come out and say something, it's immediately and unequivocally, and that didn't happen. So you'd think, well, that would preclude him from ever standing from office again. But for those that love him, because it is kind of culty around Trump, and there's something about him that I do find very mesmeric, I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
That I like the straight-talking thing. I think he'd be a better guy to deal with China than Biden would have dealt with it, all of that. But it's Donald Trump, for God's sake, isn't it? I shouldn't have to create a defensive argument as to why I'm a bit suspicious about Donald Trump.
I don't think you need to. Everyone can watch. But I think that what he has on his side is that he's not a politician, and that there are pros to cons in that.
True. But he is now, though, isn't he? He's been a president, so...
Yeah, now he is.
There it is. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you for having me.
Get out.
OK.
That's Maddie Hale with us here on Talk.